if anyone has any ideas. Like, instead of me just telling you what to do, how do you think you might go about starting to turn this draft, this first page, the page one listed in the draft, into a page of comics? Does anybody have a clue?
What have you guys been thinking? Been kind of reading through the story, starting to piece some of the stuff together. Yeah,
I feel like with what we have, like some parts are super dramatic and some of them are just like, oh, this is my mom's sister. She, you know, and so I feel like we have to like start emphasizing which parts should be cut out and which parts should be kept in mostly, which we did, which a lot of it has been done, but also like which parts we should emphasize more and put more of the spotlight on.
Yeah, that's a really good place to start. When you say emphasize and which bits to cut, I would say probably that the way that you could think about the difference between a more emphasized and a less emphasized piece of information on this page is to think of the things that feel like they need less emphasis as a one panel piece of information, and the things that need more emphasis as maybe 2 or 3 panel information. Because if you're using one panel, you can just give a fact, you can just say it, like, I was born, the first line, I, Reva Barenboim, was born on August 23rd, 1933 in Romania. That can be a panel. But then something with more dramatic impact, you can show the progression of that drama by drawing it out over 2 or 3 panels. So, for example, I mean, what would you say, anyone, what would you say is dramatic on this page? Like, what is a shocking or exciting or interesting piece of information on this first page of the story?
The second paragraph, this page 1, second paragraph, starting on the second sentence.
Can you read it for me?
The man she was dating married another girl, so she went to live in Paris for a year. Later, mom graduated from the Russian school called gymnasium.
Great. I mean, the first sentence that you read there alone, that could be 2 panels. Because you have in this sentence the idea of an expectation that was not met. She expected to marry this guy, but he married someone else. So you could have the first panel being a girl she's starry-eyed, she's full of love, she's excited, the man looks great. And then the second panel, how would you express what really happened?
Maybe her just like maybe some darker features, so making her look more tired, maybe more depressed.
Great, yeah. I see some more hands up. What about with the rings on your sleeves?
You could show in the first panel where she's happy, like maybe you could hold it, like you could show her like holding flowers or something. The next one you could show those both too.
Yeah, great, fantastic. In the blue again?
I feel like I'd probably lay it out like one panel she's like all excited, she's in love with this guy, probably like maybe like doing something romantic, picnic, park bench, something like that. Classic. And then next panel maybe it's her kind of like from her perspective, him with another girl, just like kind of faded, you know, and like in probably like in a wedding dress or something like that. But just like her kind of reflecting over it. Again, looking gaunt, darker features, stuff like that.
Great. Combine them all and you've got 2 really fun, dramatic, compelling panels. So are there any other sentences on this page that you think could benefit from that kind of rhythm?
When it says the same year that Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, the worldwide Great Depression that started in 1929 was also present in Romania and destabled the country.
How do you think that you could split that into paneling? Any ideas?
I kind of also think like the darkness, and I kind of think that the Adolf Hitler should be in one panel, but then the worldwide Great Depression maybe can be in multiple.
Yeah, yeah, well done. You could even have, if we imagine that this page contains 2 panels for the Great Depression taking over the world, and the 2 panels for the personal depression of your boyfriend marrying someone else. You could create a fun synergy between those by having very similar aesthetic details in the 2 first panels and in the 2 second panels. You can create like an idea that while news items that affect the whole world are dramatic and meaningful, so are personal news items that only affect you and your circle. You can create a like a visual juxtaposition that will help, I should imagine, anyone reading it to relate to all of the events in the book, because you can imagine what it's like to have someone leave you. You can't really imagine what it's like to have world events overtake you until they do. But if we're creating a similarity between personal events and world events by showing them in similar ways with a similar progression from light and cheerful to dark and miserable, then it feels like you can relate more to the second because you can relate to the first. Does that make sense? Awesome. So if we look at this first, do you all have the draft of the Reaver draft pages that I got sent?
Yeah, they do.
So,
Yep.
okay, great. So if you look at those 2 paragraphs that are listed as page 1, thinking about the things that we've just been talking about, and the idea of emphasis and de-emphasis by giving 1 panel or more than 1 panel to these sentences or these pieces of information, how many panels do you, and all of you, like have a look and count it up and write it down? How many panels do you think this first page is going to need to get all of the information that's in the draft into the comic page?
Six, seven, 10.
Okay, who has a guess? What about green cardigan at the front?
I would say like around 10, 15.
What about anyone else?
Like 2 to 5 panels, I guess.
Say again, sorry?
Or if it's by page, I would say like 10-ish. But it's by
Okay.
like actual valuable information that would like really help someone. I would say around like 5, 10.
What are other people guessed at?
Okay.
The
4.
blue hoodie at the back.
Oh, it says 4. Go on.
No. Like 6 and 7.
Priya,
Around 8.
Allie, Bianca.
6 to 8.
Are you looking at Anna's story?
Yeah.
Okay. Arabella,
9 or 10.
I'm like,
I was thinking like only like 3 to 4 for the first amount of information because it's such a small amount and you can combine a lot of things. Like you could have the baby like in the hospital room and then like a poster outside seeing Adolf Hitler Chancellor or something through the window or something like that.
I don't know. Where are we looking, guys? We are just on right here, just that first script, right? Just here.
Small, not this 14-page read report.
Right, just this much right here.
Okay.
We've got quite a range here, Claire, obviously. Always 4 to between 6 to 10 panels.
It's tricky, isn't it? It is. It's hard to decide, and any of these answers could be perfectly correct. Like any of these are totally doable. It's up to you. It's up to how many panels you want to draw. Now, as far as I know, you're all going to work together to create one comic per page of this draft, which is 10 pages, right?
Yes.
So if we go with the higher end of estimate and say that it's about 10 panels on that page, and if we guess that that's about the average for each page, then, well, I mean, you're in school. What's 10 times 10? Do you want to draw 100 panels?
No.
You're a quitting lot. Okay, so the goal that we have is to cut it down from 10. On the other hand, so the guess from what's your name in the blue second row? Yeah.
Amelie.
Say again?
Amelie.
Amelie. Okay. So you said we could do it in 3. We could do it in 3, but you also said that it would mean putting a lot of detail in. Getting all of that information into 3 panels is going to be a lot of detailed drawing. Do you want to work that hard?
No, I think we should have to like spread it out a bit.
I think you're right.
5 or 6. 50 panels in the end. I think 6. Yeah, I think that's fine.
It's not as many as it sounds. It does sound like so many panels when you think of it all at once, but don't think of it all at once. Think about it page by page by page, because that's how you'll be working. It's the only way to get through anything. Think about what's right in front of you and do that. So if we want to get it down to 5 or 6 panels, what are the 5 or 6 panels on this first page going to contain? What is the most important information on this page, do you think? Yeah?
Background.
Say again?
Reva's background.
But which parts?
Like Reva Barenboim was born on August 23rd, 1933 in Romania. That's really important.
Okay, so let's write down.
And you're that Adolf Hitler became chancellor.
Yeah.
So if those first 2 sentences are going to be 1 panel, let's assume that to be the case. And maybe you should draw around or highlight those 2 sentences to indicate that they're going to be put into 1 panel. So what do you think is the second most important piece of information on this page? What's the most exciting or interesting or dramatic piece?
Great Depression and the mom's love situation.
I couldn't hear that super well.
Great Depression.
So what should be the second panel?
Great Depression.
The Great Depression.
You think that should be a second panel, or you think that should be part of the first panel?
First.
The first, okay. Let's look at the next piece of information that we're given. Do you think that the father having a large family and all of the children being girls needs to be in its own panel, or do you think that you can put that in the same panel as, for example, her mother having 2 sisters?
What do you guys think? Same panel?
Same panel. Yeah, we have a different. We have a different story.
She's saying this is a newer one. It's fine. Which one do you guys want?
That's in the first 6 pages.
Okay, the first 6 pages.
I think put
Sorry, Claire, we got like an updated thing from Anna. So are you able to see our screen here, Claire?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think she did some editing that we just gathered here, or like we just discovering it now. So it's relatively the same, but I don't know if you can see, it might be a little bit different words than what I shared with you originally. And so they have a printed copy of the older version.
Oh, I see.
So we're gonna get that printed, but I have it up on the screen. They can kind of look at it here now in the meantime. So that might be why there's a little bit of confusion here, but we'll get it all straightened away. They can see it, so we should be on the same page to get it printed.
So I think I heard someone say that this information about all of the children being girls and there being a large family, that could go into the same panel as the mother having 2 sisters. Was that a general consensus, or does anyone disagree?
Looks like most agree.
Okay, great. So we'll highlight that in a second color. What about them being very rich? Oops.
That can go in with the girls and sisters, like
Yeah.
just dress them in expensive kind of looking clothing, like not super like, because you can do that. I mean, you can make them like
Excellent. Okay.
or whatever.
fancy backlash.
Yeah, we'll have to look at fashion.
Good. Detail oriented. Very good. Okay, so what about the next line? The man my mom was dating married another girl, so she went to live in Paris for a year. Is that one panel? Or do we want to stretch it out to 2 or 3? 2? Okay, so how should we indicate that? Let's just do half one color and half another color. What about the next line? Later, Mum graduated from the Russian school called a gymnasium. She had an excellent education and knew the Russian language and literature well. She also spoke French and was a good mathematician. So we could, I think, put all of that in one panel.
Yeah.
But do we want to?
Yes.
I hear division.
Yeah.
What are the arguments for and what are the arguments against?
I just think that the whole part about her talking about school, I feel like it just goes together, and I feel like it'd be weird to split it up.
I think all the I think you could.
Who else is thinking that they would like that one panel? And so we have this idea here about school being combined. Avery, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
I just think like the same thing Callie did about just like it's all the schools, so it's like not just.
Okay.
I feel like a couple like more like time put into it because of the little details, but it would still look better.
You always have a mix between detail and non-detail.
What's that?
You can always have a mix between like super detailed panels and non-detailed panels. Because like it's gotta be like interesting enough that they can read through the non-interesting panels.
Okay. Other thoughts to add into that hasn't already been shared? Were you gonna add something, or you good?
I was just gonna say, like,
Why don't you what? Okay, we're gonna get that next, okay? Any other new ideas or things to add to why it should be one panel, this thing, concept around school? You sure?
well, maybe I might thought since we're doing it one panel, maybe on like this side. Like her mom and then like a French word and then some like adding some children.
Sure.
Or if it's like a whiteboard in front of her when she's sitting.
You can put her in math textbooks and then have her speaking French to the personage.
All right, so let's transition. We've heard about one panel. Some of you are suggesting more than one panel, maybe two panels. So let's hear from that perspective of what you were thinking. Go ahead, Ron.
I think too, because if you're doing like so many details, like it's a children's book, so not enough people are gonna see the details. So you might need to put it into two to really like get what's happening.
All right, so to make those details stand out a little bit better, so it's not so hard to try to find it all. Is that what you're saying? All right, yep.
I think two would be better because it's be hard to understand all in one if you're trying to like put that in.
Okay, yeah, it could be hard to understand having all that in squeezed into one.
And I also think you could do like one where she's graduating, in other words, like showing her like being able to speak French, like doing all that. Because
Okay.
like if you're just showing her sitting doing math, you're not gonna see that she graduated.
Or her with a French and math degree.
Ah, so two panels to show that she was smart and doing all that study, but another one to show that she graduated.
Like first one, she could be looking up at the school called gymnasium or whatever it's called. And then next it could be her graduating in her robes and stuff, and then with her math.
It could be one or in school, like learning, doing everything, and then another one walking.
Okay. Claire, any of those details pop out to you?
Well, I mean, I think that both sides have a good, solid argument. So, I mean, I would just say put it to a vote.
I'm gonna put it to a vote.
A vote.
So, kind of heard both sides here. How many are in favor of one panel? Oh, the numbers change quickly. How many are in favor of two panels? Well, I think that clarifies it.
Clarify.
Two panels.
All right, so it sounds like two panels we're gonna go with.
Okay.
I think this is.
Yeah, we can break this down further. It's kind of weird. Break this down, yeah.
Okay, so that is the first page paneled out, just about. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels, which is within the bounds of what you wanted it to be. So that's good. Have you made any decisions or any progress on deciding who's going to be doing exactly what in this production process?
We took a Google form, so Miss Weiss could kind of sort through who wanted to do what and make sure like we got what we wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, so the kids have had a voice through a form of what aspect of the assembly line, so to speak, that they're interested in. So that'll be sorted and sifted here soon, because that'll be our next step, is to get into those groups, and begin to flesh some of these details out.
Great. So did anyone say that they were particularly interested in layouts? That's kind of a lot. Okay, great. Well, in that case, plenty of you should have some ideas about what you think this 6-panel page should look like. And hopefully some of you are going to agree. Does anyone looking at this divided up page, do you see it in your mind? Does anyone have like a strong vision for what the layout of this page should look like? the picture for me is very small, so I can't actually tell if anyone has their hand up.
Oh, no, you're fine. I can stop sharing the screen here for a second. That might make it easier. Roland, were you gonna say something?
No.
Anybody else, any visuals or layouts in terms of structures? But
There's a lot of like cause and effect panels, like something happened, like it's perfectly happy here, and then something happened, and this is the effect. So I'm thinking of maybe if we go by like 2 all the way down, so you can see that cause and effect.
That's strong thinking. That's very sensible.
yeah, I think Clay, you talked about earlier, I think in the first session about that idea, of how do we help a reader read a comic? They've never read a comic before.
Yeah.
So as we think about that idea, there are cause and effect, and obviously they're gonna piece it all together. You put, I guess there's probably no right or wrong answer, but how do you move those to help move that eyeball? Is cause, should those be bigger panels than the effect, or it depends on the impact? That'd be, I don't think we would want 6 of the same size panels in this first page.
That
No,
is
first of all-
something that you could do. You could have just a regular old grid like that. Can you see that? It's kind of pale. But if you do, then this is what I was trying to explain last time, and I did so badly at. So this time I'm going to draw a picture. If you have 6 evenly sized panels, then the untrained eye, if you start here, is not sure if it should go that way or that way. They're not sure which panel is number 2. It seems very obvious to someone who's used to reading comics, but to someone who isn't, it's just not. So something like this is often a little bit easier because the gutters don't line up with each other. They don't intersect. This gutter works as a gathering agent. It gathers these two together instead of on this side where they're the same. There's neither of these lines has more authority. It could gather those two together, or that could gather those two together. It's just not clear. So because on the page that we've marked, the middle 2 panels, number 3 and 4, the yellow and the orange, which are the mother having a boyfriend and the boyfriend marrying someone else, because those are so easily comedic, they're the easy to relate to. They're almost like a joke. I had a boyfriend, he married someone else. They're very snappy and pat. Those would be the panels that I would suggest you would keep of equal size, because they're almost like the 2 sides of the equation are almost of equal value. I thought I was wrong. They're the same kind of thing. So if you think of the middle tier of your page as being 2 evenly sized panels, then the top tier and the bottom tier you have a lot more leeway with, because you won't want to line up the middle gutter, which means you can make them much different sizes, and it means you can think about what shape and what size you want to keep those. Does that make sense? Good. Although, if you don't want to do that, that's all right. So if we look at the first 2, the blue one and the purple, being born and having a big family, which of those 2 panels do you think needs to pack in more information? Is it the one where Reva is born and Hitler becomes chancellor, or is it the one where she has a large family and sisters? Right at the back.
Large the first one has more information because you have to put like multiple like people and like ideas. oh, both my family sides have lots of people.
I would agree. What about Amelie again?
I feel like the second one has a lot of information, but the first one has a lot more important information.
Yeah.
So like the second one might be harder to draw because there's going to be a lot more people to draw, and like the style and way you draw it will be different. But the first one will require a lot of creativeness and ideas to put both of those into one paper.
Solid reasoning, yeah. Would agreeing, disagreeing? What do you think? I see nodding. Good. Okay, so someone should be taking a log of this. If there's anyone who likes to make sure things are going smoothly, if you like project managing, someone had better be writing down these thoughts that we're having and these decisions that we're coming to, because if you just forget them all, then it's like we've done no work at all. So who will that be?
I'll you write that down, somebody else write it down too. We have three
It
ideas.
seems unanimous. So I think what we said is we're looking at a larger first panel, a slightly smaller second panel, two evenly sized middle tier panels, and that leaves the bottom tier. So does anyone have any ideas about these last two panels, the green and the light red? I see hands up at the back, I think.
But
It could be two panels that are on top of each other that reach to both sides.
Why would you say that? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, just tell me what you're thinking.
You can put more things in the background to make them have to be less detailed.
Yeah, that's true. How does that sound to everyone else? Does that sound like a good idea for fitting in the information that you need here?
I mean,
what do we think? What are other ideas? Again, not that that's right or wrong. How are other people seeing those last two sentences in terms of panels?
Well, actually, you know, before anyone answers, I realize that I haven't asked quite an important question. Do you know the size and shape that this book is going to be when it's published?
Yes.
You do. What will it be?
Let me grab a copy of it and I'll take a measurement and let you know.
Perfect. Because I have been imagining a fairly standard sized portrait format page, but if that is not the kind of page you'll be using, this will be no good because they won't fit.
Yeah, it'll be portrait. We got to run back to the room and grab it. I'll let you know.
Okay. Okay, well, since we're on about the right track, does anyone else have any ideas for these last two panels? Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe we draw one big panel and split it into two triangles, and there can be like one person's her standing there, her mom standing there, and maybe we spin to a triangle so like she can have her graduation hat on one side of the triangle, but she can have her teaching outfit on the different triangle, and she could be saying things differently. So you show both worlds of her graduating, but also her putting that into the real world.
That is an interesting idea, yes. I love that you're thinking about using the format of comics to make extra points. And having a triangular divide will provide the same width that you at the back were mentioning, making more space for more people, more background, more detail. So combining your two ideas, I think you've got something very strong there. So if we have that noted down, I think you've basically got a pretty reliable page structure. The exact dimensions will vary, based on who's drawing, based on who's thinking. But that's fine. You can sort that out once you get to it. The only thing left to do at this planning stage, of course, is decide what will be in the panel, which is so easy.
Yeah, Claire, we're gonna have, let me try to look at my screen here. It's 8.5 by 11, like a standard kind of printer paper size is what we'll be
Okay.
using. So there'll be, well, there'll be the paragraphs from Anna, and then we'll, whatever we're gonna have for our illustration.
Okay. Pretty standard comic book
Yep.
dimensions. Okay. Well then, yeah, that's solid. 6 panels on 3 tiers. Very, very doable. Now remember, you will want to work at least double size when you're drawing these, so that it will get neater when it's reduced down. I don't know what kinds of things you'll be working on, but I'm sure you'll manage. So does anyone have any worries about this page? Does anything look confusing or like a stopping point, or is there anything you can see that you don't think will fit into this panel formatting? Is there anything that you think that you don't know enough about, or what are the problems that you foresee between now and having a finished version of this page? Let me give you an example. Do you know what all these people look like? No. You've got a picture of Reva, I believe, at the top of this document. But I don't know if you have any pictures of her family, or you probably almost certainly don't have a picture of her mum's old boyfriend. So you'll need to think, what should these people look like? For example, let's take the boyfriend as an example. He's kind of a bad guy in this story, right? Because he jilts her mother. So a lot of people might have the instinct that they should make him look like a bad guy, like a mean person, or like a horrible guy, or like someone she should be glad to get rid of. And that's something you could do. There are lots of ways you could think about doing that. But if Reva's mother had married this boyfriend, where would Reva be? Probably nowhere, because her father is a different man. If her mum had married this guy, everything would be different. So he's not really a bad guy in historic terms. So you probably don't want to go overboard making him look like a bad guy, which means he just has to seem quite nice, enough that someone would reasonably want to marry him, but not too nice, or the reader will be caught up in thinking what a shame it was that she didn't get to marry that guy. And similarly, if you're going to show the woman that he did marry, some people would want to make her look horrible or silly or degrade her in some way because she's the baddie who took this man. But if she hadn't, Reva wouldn't be around. So there's no reason to make her look mean. Then again, you don't want to make her look too nice, because then people will be caught up in relating to and sympathizing with the wrong people, because you want to keep them thinking about Reva and Reva's family and on their side. So when you're thinking about what these people should look like, you've got to keep in mind the balance of what you want the reader to feel and think about them, and how that shouldn't outweigh what the reader feels and thinks about Reva and about her mum and about her mum's family. So you also need to put that same amount of thinking into what Reva's mother and Reva's family look like. So you might want to do that all together, or you might want to delegate that to someone. Like if one of you is really good at thinking of different faces, or really good at character design, or designing like pit crews or something, if someone has that as a particular skill or talent, then if they get to work designing all of these people, then the rest of you can just draw or contribute to the end comic using those designs, instead of everyone having to think up together what all these different people could look like. Because if you're trying to draw Reva's whole big family, then that's going to be a lot of work for everyone. But if you give it to someone who likes doing it and to who it doesn't feel like a lot of work, then everybody's happy.
I feel like the boyfriend would be like a rich, snobby dude with like, I don't know, like one of those like mustaches or something.
Borrow.
That kind of looks like Hitler, but yeah. But she's like, she's saying that she would be like,
I think maybe you should make him looking like kind of. I think he might be like. I think he could be more like a. He looks pretty average when he's with the mother. Like, yeah, kind of bored. When he's with the other kids,
and I feel like he would be like a strong man, because like if he would get angry, he would like beat you up or something. Maybe like a black hair or something. Like if he did that.
wow, black hair is an immediate red flag.
I think
Yeah.
You can make them more like look kind of like bored or like expressionless. You don't have to show his face when he's with the mother.
So when they
But
have
when-
like expressions,
but-
then it makes them have personality.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
think
of-
so. Like he just has like a blank expression, or he doesn't have any face at all. And in the next one, he's happy and smiling. But like in
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
yeah.
You're kind of like ignoring her because like why would you go for the second person if you could fall in love for a second time? Like why would you go for the first person again? So then he'd probably not love. He probably didn't love her as much as he loved him.
Also, I think he would wear like one of those like suitcases and like a blazer. Not
Yes.
there. Not briefcase. But like he would wear like a suit, and then like and like the first class be like one of those like business ones.
I think this sounds great. You're doing really good work.
Yeah, so we'll have to get some ideas out on paper here, I think, for them to kind of work through and
Absolutely.
see how they visualize this, not just the guy, but everybody else in the family too. We gotta start to bring some of those details to life there as well.
Yeah, I think if you have ideas, write them down or draw them down, share them with each other. These people will take form. And if you have any real disagreements about what someone should look like, then just have those disagreements, make your cases, see whose is more convincing, vote if you need to. It's the process is the purpose. As long as you're thinking and doing, you're going in the right direction. But of course, eventually you just have to pick one.
Right.
Decision.
We do have deadlines, yes.
So is there anything else that you need from me at this point? Do you feel that you know what you're doing a little bit? Do you feel that you could go at the next page amongst yourselves and panel it out like that and decide which is more important and what needs emphasizing and so on? Or do you still feel a little nervous about the whole thing?
Want to do one more panel together, guys? Want to do page 2 together? We have time for that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to hear your thinking through that again. I'm gonna jot some of that down.
we're looking at page 2.
Yeah, but does that feel good, guys? You want to try that together one more time?
Claire, do you have time for that? Another 10 minutes or so? 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, look at your page 2, guys.
Shall I read out the version that's in this document just to make sure that everything's the same?
I think we got new printouts. So I think we should be, I think we're good. Yep, we're good.
Okay. Good.
All right, so as you guys are reading through that, maybe just like we did last time, start to think about where you think panels might be, how sensitive to group together. You sketch down a few little thoughts on that paper in order to read through. Claire, I don't know if this is a important question or not, but if we're thinking about comic panel layouts from page to page, is it important to have a different layout with each page? You know what I mean? It's like we wouldn't have the same layout. Like page 1 wouldn't be the same panel layout as say like page 2, or does that not matter?
That is a good question. That's a very good question. Well done. There is no ultimate correct answer, but I will say that the reading experience that comes with seeing the same panel formations over and over again is a little bit wearing, or it can be. If you see the same shapes and the same rhythm of reading, because how fast you go from one panel to the next depends on all kinds of things, and of course that includes what the panels are shaped like and how they're placed and how they look in juxtaposition with each other. It gets boring. It gets too familiar to see the same. Like many people are very, very fond of the 9-panel grid, which is where you have 3, 3, 3. Like from every direction, it's 3 panels, and they're all the same size. And many people say this is one of the easiest types of page to read because it's just the same panel over and over. You go to the next one, next one, next one. But I don't like it. I don't find it agreeable to read because there are 9 panels is quite a high number of panels per page. And every time you're reading the same high number and they're in the same shape formation every single time, it just, the rhythm is so familiar. It goes and 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 it goes. And it annoys me. I just don't like it very much. So if you avoid repeating your formations, you know that you'll avoid annoying me. Not every reader is like me. A lot of people find it pleasant enough to read the same formation over again. But they don't necessarily read books all in one go. They don't necessarily read very fast. They might read faster and prefer it to have that rhythm going because that might keep their speed up. If you're going to be using more interesting panel formations like the one we've just discussed on the first page, repeating that over and over again probably won't be very easy. It won't seem natural because it's specific to that page. We put that formation of panels together in response to what's already been written in this prose draft. So when we hit the next page written in this prose draft, we probably won't feel that same rhythm is jumping out to us because it hasn't been written to inspire it. So you probably won't have to worry about trying to make pages different on purpose, which is good because trying to do things on purpose is often a way to make them feel sort of fake because you're self-conscious, so you do things a little weirdly. So basically my answer is don't worry about it. You'll probably be fine without even thinking about it. But if you do think about it, you can think about the things that I just said.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so some of you guys have been breaking down page 2. So what are we thinking just in general in terms of like numbers of panels? Let's just kind of shout them out one at a time. You don't have to raise your hand, just don't shout out all at once. What are we thinking for panels? Then we can go break down by sentences, but what's your number?
4.
I had 5.
You got 4? We got a,
5.
I had 5.
all right, how many have 4? I'm just curious. We have one. Okay. Some people there were 4. What about 5?
Can we explain?
We will hear 6 or a different number between 4 and 5. You had 6. Okay, we got some 6s, 7s, or 8s or 9s.
Oh, we've gotten better. Our range is going.
All right, so it looks like we're between 4, 5, and 6 here in terms of this one.
I had 5, but
Oh.
what were the 4 panels for those of you who were seeing 4?
But you, yeah, I heard.
So my first panel, I was actually gonna have them like show because like funny story, like have them like the very first panel you have is that like together, and then you're gonna kind of go back in time and show like that funny story. That's what it was like.
Were you able to hear him okay, Claire?
That's a fun idea.
What else? Who else has 4 panel idea? Good.
Well, I don't know if it has to be 4, it could be 3 or 5. But it's mostly just 4,
Okay.
but it could be added on. I don't think we need the funny story part. It could just not even let it happen. And it could just be, it could be like a letter that from the dad's sister wanting to come to America, and you could bring a wife, and then another panel where they're talking, him and the mom, and it could have a thought bubble where it says, I actually want to get married, but you don't have, and that's a thought, and the actual words could be the fake marriage. And then, am I at 3 now?
Yeah.
And then it could be another letter from the mom's relatives, and then they say they're going to get married and say it will be in the city.
Yeah, not bad at all. It's brief, but it's solid. Yeah, that could work.
You have 4 as well?
No, I have 5.
Any other 4s want to share? Are we good? All right, what about some 5s? We had a lot of hands up for 5s. Go ahead, Emily. We'll get you next.
Okay, so I split it into 5, and I thought that we could do like a little kind of like talking area at the top, and that said funny story how my parents met, so you know it's their parents, not her. And then it'll go like I was thinking a letter too from her sister. It said that he could take a wife with him. And then the next part would be my mom agreed to a fake marriage with him so she could go to It Was Love at First Sight. It doesn't really have to be love at first sight, but it can be like she agreed to go to a fake marriage with him, like kind of like begging him, like, can I please go with you? Whatever, we can make a fake marriage. But then like another panel, kind of like a shorter one and less detailed, but it's just dad wanted to marry her for real. Kind of alone, like kind of just like thought or something like that. And then I thought next we could do mom's relatives suggested they get married and live in Romania, which could be another letter, or just like them at like deporting or whatever. And then they could, the last one would be, so they did and settled in the city of Balti or whatever it's called, and that can be like the wedding day.
Yeah, solid as well.
What do you got, Callie? Or, sorry.
So I had 5. So I just got rid of the funny story about how my parents met, but I think we can still use it only said to like show that their parents. So for the first one, it was my dad's sister invited me to come to America. So I was thinking like 2 people talking, and like his sister is like in a speech bubble, like shows like a wife or something, or like just a girl, and then a suitcase in front of them. So like they're in the distance talking. The next one, I don't know. My mom agreed to a fake marriage. And then the next one was, it was love at first sight. Dad wanted to marry her for real. Second one, it can be a letter. So mom's relatives suggested they could get married and live in Romania. The next one, the one suitcase is moving.
Yeah, good. You're doing great.
Now we had a couple people with 6 panels. You guys want to share or your thoughts? No, you don't have to. Okay. All right, so it looks like we're between 4 and 5.
Now, I'll tell you what I would have done, just for comparison. So I had 5. The first of which would be 1 or 2 people in conversation. Because of course, comics can be metaphorical. The things that you're showing don't have to be literally happening. So even though a sister in America would not be able to speak directly to a brother, you can still show them speaking directly or just speaking on their own in a comic. So the sister saying, "Come to America." And you can indicate things like the fact that she's talking to her brother through narrative captions. I think that that's what you mean when you say a talking space. Narrative captions and dialogue, don't forget about them, because even though they're not pictures, they are part of the comic. They are involved. You can include all the text that you want or need in a panel to make it clear what's happening or what you're trying to get across. So a sister saying, "Come to America," and you can have a narrative caption saying, "My dad's sister invited him to come and live with them." And then I would have a second panel where this same sister is saying, "Oh, and you can take a wife," because that way you set up the idea of, again, the expectation and then some kind of change, some subversion, or some result of that expectation that is different to what was expected. So he thinks, "Oh, I can go to America, but then I've got to find a wife." Putting that rhythm between 2 panels, I need this thing, I have this thing, now I need this other thing, creates a sense of motion and excitement that comics is kind of special for having. Making it 2 panels instead of 1, like adding more information in a second panel, creates such a sense of movement between those 2 panels that, again, it encourages a new reader to keep moving between panels and keep relating the idea of what's in a panel to what was in the last panel. So they remember what's been happening and they get the sort of zoetrope effect that animation produces, but just through reading these flat things. My third panel would be, the mum agreeing to a fake marriage. You can put in some funny dialogue about that. The fourth, the dad wants to marry her for real. And the fifth would be arriving in the city where they're going to settle, and the narrative caption explaining that the mother's relatives suggested that. So my way or your way or your way or your way, they're all just as good. They all have particular strengths and particular uses of the comics format that are good and that are encouraging and exciting and interesting to read. So I think that you're doing really, really well, and you're totally equipped to work through the rest of this draft. And it's just a matter of deciding which parts of whose ideas are the absolute cream of the crop and which bits of your own idea you want to get rid of now that you've heard other people's ideas, and just combining them all into the best possible ultimate option, which it seems like you're totally ready to do. Well done.
Well, thank you for your help and guidance. I think it's kind of talking and working through this process helps us, not just us as the educators, but also the students. Kind of, we get into our roles here, kind of how to break down the pages a little bit there, start to have some conversation. So we're really appreciative of you finding time to speak with us again and help us navigate through that, because now we know we can mimic this process here.
I'm totally happy to do so, and I'm glad that you've let me get involved. I think it's going to be a really, really good book. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah, we are too. Awesome. Well, we've kept you for an hour here. We appreciate it. We definitely want to be respectful of your time. I know we've got some good briefing and work to kind of figure out here next steps, but we can't thank you enough. Can we tell Claire thank you here?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Claire, and I'll follow up with you with the email with some where we're heading next.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Goodbye.